The project now is to build a custom gaming computer. This is for a friend of mine who runs New Vision Aviation. They have electric airplanes, real airplanes, 4 of them that they use for flight training. And they have flight simulators that they've put into public schools for a program to help prepare kids from disadvantaged neighborhoods to pursue a potential career path as airplane pilots. So this is the first time I'll try doing a computer build on camera, and it's actually been a long time since I've built a computer. So we'll see how this goes. These are all the parts over here, and this is the case. Now, when I take something out of the case, common way that I do it is just turn the case upside down and let it come out on the styrofoam pad. Now, I have already had this case out, and I explored it a little bit, and even looked at a couple YouTube videos, and discovered a method of dealing with it that I didn't find anyone else using. Although I haven't looked at all the videos regarding this case, so it'll be kind of fun to show you that. Instruction manual. It was several days ago that I had dealt with this, and I needed to put it back in the box so that I could do some other work. So here's the first piece of what I found is the instruction manual and the videos that I found showed removing the screws from the bottom, unscrewing them, of course, and removing the screws. And none of the videos actually showed taking the top off of the case. Did I get a better camera angle than this? Yeah, that's good. And these screws kind of act like captive screws. That's not a very good angle either. How about try one of these where both of those. Oh, all right. How about Huh. All right. Well, let's do this one then. There, you can see that screw coming out. It's kind of captive. It doesn't want to pull out very well. You can get it out, but I struggled with it a little bit to get it out. Well, what I found is that if you take the screws out, it's then difficult to get the case apart. So what I discovered a little bit by accident is just unscrew it to the point to where you can feel it's out of the threads. Let's try down here. But leave the screws in. Because then a really slick thing is that you just set this case down on the screws and the lid pops right off. Well, let's see, which camera shall I use for this? Yeah, this one. So I'm setting it right down on the screws and the lid just pops right off. My first couple times trying to get that lid off, it was quite a wrestling match of a struggle. Here's a box of various little components and screws and ties and so on. And the riser for the graphics card, because the motherboard goes in here and then there's a riser and the graphics card actually goes over this way. So now what part do I want to do next? Let's see how I get this camera facing Is that it? And how does my light do for that? Yeah, that'll be all right. And I also want to put this little turntable under there so it's easier to deal with. That's just a Lazy Susan from my one of my kitchen cabinets. Now then, let's take these parts over here. I think I'm going to start with the motherboard. That's the power supply. There's some fans. It's a graphics card. Here's the motherboard. There's a Wi-Fi antenna and some cables. And I have had this out of the box already and looked it over. There's the motherboard, just a little bitty guy. And it has all the connections panel attached to the motherboard. Why am I forgetting the name of that panel? All right. So here's the CPU socket, memory slots, the M.2 SSD slot is under there. I'm going to try a little dry test fit here. And it dawns on me right now that I haven't disassembled the case enough yet. That fits in there nicely. So the case needs to come apart a little bit more. This bottom panel needs to come off. And to do that, I already looked at the manual for it. Oh yes. And the trick to knowing where to take it apart is this side here comes out last. So that panel comes off on these tabs first and then comes out there. So there are these tabs. I wonder if I can show those tabs. Ah, there. They're over here. Let's get a better light on that. Get the camera moved up to it better. There's one tab right there. And the other tab right there. Yeah, there you can see a little bit of a reflection on it. So what I'll do is push on that with a screwdriver. And I was thinking it'd probably be a little bit better with a ballpoint pen because this blade kind of tends to slip off. But I just need to press that tab out enough to release the bottom. A different way. There. And then there are tabs along the side here. You can see that one there, and this one here. And the opposite side has tabs in similar positions, straight across from each other. So I can push these at the same time. Okay, that came up a little bit. And it went back down. Up, up. This one comes up. This one. Then back here. Back here. So now it's ready to come up. And you can see the USB ports here. They'll come out as this part of the case comes up. So when I first tried this, I went right back and reversed that right away to see how to put this back in. So you slip those USB ports into those openings and then put it down. So here's the bottom tray that comes off. I'm going to set that off to the side, and here's the midsection. Now, this is kind of interesting and somewhat of a disadvantage, is that these vent screens here are magnetic, and in order to clean this screen, you're going to have to take the bottom off of that case like that. So take the top off and take the bottom off. And then there's another screen over here that's also magnetic. All right. Where do I want to go next? I'm going to take off some of these twist ties. See that I need to adjust one of my camera angles. Let's see, do I have that one? I do not. See, I've got two webcams up here, and the one on the left right now is not working for me. I want it to be able to point down at the computer. So I guess I'm going to have to turn the screen blank while I adjust that. So hang on here. I'm still here. And let's go select this other camera. I think is it this one? Nope. Move that. And is it video? Go with this one. Let's see. Yes, it's that one. And I got to make it bigger to fill up that screen. And I want that to face down to the computer to be able to show an angle from that side. All right, and coming back to here. So let's see, did I get that on this button? No, I haven't got that on that button yet. So to do that, I'll go over here to my Stream Deck and pick this Zoom cam and change that to a different scene. The scene is called Scene 32. Let's see if I did that right. So coming back to my straight on and then this one. Yes. Okay, so now I've got that right. And come back to here. Sorry if that made you dizzy. All right, so the motherboard is going to go get that twist tie out. Motherboard's going to go into here when we're ready for it. The riser plugs in here, and it has a socket comes through here. The graphics card is here. There'll be a fan there and a fan there. And the power supply goes over here. All right. Now I'm going to take another look at the manual for the case. Yeah, there's no additional risers or spacers for the motherboard. Okay, now I'm questioning whether I want to mount the CPU and the heatsink on the motherboard before screwing it in place, and I think I'm not going to do that. That's kind of commonly done, but I'm thinking it will be easier to be able to connect all the wires before that fan is in place. So I'm going to try to go ahead and put the screws in for the motherboard. There's 4 screws there. The power supply goes over here. This frame here for the power supply needs to come out, and it's going to take 4 screws to screw into the power supply. But I'm thinking those 4 screws are probably for the motherboard. Yes, it distinguishes those screws from the other screws. There you can see it. When I'm looking on the screen at the video, there's a delay. It's a little difficult to position the screw to show it off. Let's see, what camera would be good for this? This one? This be better over here. And put this one in. let's see. So I need to move that screw away from the camera. Oh, there you can see the screw hole. These screws don't need to be very tight, just snug. I go around and check them like this because it is possible to have one end seemingly tight, but then once you put the others in, it might change the torque a little bit. So since this is so accessible here, I'm really inclined to not put the CPU in yet. I'd like to see where all these cables go. So this cable connects to the power supply. The power supply actually goes over here in this section, although the power cord connects over here. They've got a cord running through the case to the power supply. Here's power LED plus and power LED negative and power switch. I'm still figuring out my way around these cameras. All right. There's CPU fan. Those are all fans. And there's the headers that would be for those wires. Now I'm having a difficult time seeing that, so I'm going to go grab my magnifier. Like this right here. Gonna work on your teeth now. And so these connections here. I see USB. Don't see much there for markings. So let's take a look at the motherboard manual. See, is this, that's not good. None of those are going to show this book very well, are they? What if I turn that light off? Yeah, that's a little better. Front I/O connector, USB connection, speaker, audio panel. This looks more promising. There's a reset, power button, power LED. Yeah, that's the area I was thinking. There's 3 sets. There's the I/O panel. Those pins, and what is this other one next to it? HD audio, that is not the audio panel. It's not power. These are the ones that I wanted. So, power switch. Is there's power LED, ground. There's 4 connectors. Power LED, positive, power LED, negative. There's, power LED positive, power LED negative. It's opposite of the standalone. So, go there, and which one's the positive? So power LED is at the end, positive. Power LED negative is 1 notch in. Yeah, see, this would have been very difficult with the CPU already installed. Now, let's see if I've got that right. So it's on the opposite side of that single pin, which means, nope, that's not right. Then here, and I've got the plus at the end, and then the negative. All right, so let me show how that goes. Here's the illustration. I have the camera set on manual focus, so I'm going to have to refocus that. All right. I don't know if it'll focus that close. Here we try this. Yes, it does. Okay. So here we're seeing that it is this connector here that has 8 connections in 2 rows plus one other connector. Now here it says power LED plus and power LED negative. So the power LEDs are the 2 pins at the opposite end of that solo pin, and it's catty corner, meaning on this other row. All right, so now I'm going to try to show that on the motherboard for you to be able to see it. This is going to be fun. Can I show that very well? So it's up here. I need to set this down. In here, and now I'm going to try to focus. There's a focus. But you're not seeing a good view of that yet. Okay, there's 3 rows of pins there. But these 2 rows are clearly on the same block. I don't know if you can tell that. And then this row of pins out here is on a separate block. So there's 8 pins that are together there. And then that single pin is out here on the end. So I have put this connector on the 2 pins catty corner from that single pin. And the plus, the positive connector, is on the end, just like the book shows. So come back and look at the book again. Get it to focus. Come on, give me a focus. Are my eyes just getting tired and it is focused? But there's that single pin over here, and then those top 2 pins on the left is power LED plus and power LED minus. So that was kind of difficult to find the right pins compared to some other motherboards that I've dealt with, where you just put a whole connector block down and it is automatically picking the correct pins. So I'm glad that I did that without the CPU in. So next here I have the power switch. And you can almost see that, but it says power switch on this connector. So I want to know, where does the power switch go? It's most likely on that same block. Yes, okay. Will it focus that close? Oh, there we go. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay, so I'm not going to point to it. I'm just going to try to describe it. On that block of 9 pins, there's 2 rows of 4 together, and then that one out there by itself. The middle pair of pins on the top side says power, on the bottom side says ground. So this connector is going to go across those two pins between ground and power. There it is. Now it does have one side ground and the other side power. Which way does that need to be turned? That actually doesn't matter, because a power switch, all it does, a power switch on the computer, is it joins the two wires together. So it's not actually a plus and a minus. It is plus and minus as far as the pins on the motherboard, but the power switch itself just connects the two wires together. Okay, I'm going to pause the recording here and take a little break. And let's do a couple clicks for that camera adjustment I was doing. Get out of that camera adjustment, then I'm going to pause in 3, 2, 1, pause. And we're back, continuing. So I want to see what else I can do with wires here. All right, so this one is connected to the USB ports. And that's going to connect right over here. Let's figure out how to show that on camera. All right, that header right there. It's got a notch on the one side. I'm going to figure out the routing of these cables and generally how they're going to lie after I figure out everything. Then there's a couple of ports there for SATA. I'm not going to have any SATA connectors because this is going to use the M.2 NVMe drive right there. Then this one right here, what is that? There it is. That's a Gen 2 front panel connector. Do any of the wires coming from the front panel look like that? So it's a Gen 2, Generation 2, so I think it appears that, nope, we don't use that. So now this connector, HD audio. See if I can focus better there. focus on my hand at that distance. There, HD audio. Where does that connect to? I suspect that's going to be one of these two connectors over here. Yes, and that's pretty easy to match because it has a 9-pin connector there, and you can see one of those holes is plugged, and that matches with one of these. There. I think I can show that. Yeah, there's those two sets of pins, and the one that's towards the top of your screen has an empty pin right at the same position that matches that connector. Okay. And that's the header that the book indicated is for front panel audio. So plug that in. Let's see which. Yeah, that camera's pretty good there. Okay, so there's that wire covered. These two wires joined together, so we got that one connected, got this one connected. What else is there? There's the power supply. There's no other wires to come through. So then we've got memory will go there, and that will be a connector from the power supply. SATA ports we're not going to use. Gen 2 we're not going to use. There's an on-off switch right there. What's that about? There, see that on-off switch? And try that focus again. Trying a manual focus. Nope. Looks to me like it's too close for autofocus. That looks like about the best I can get. Okay. So what is that switch? It's right next to this power header. So I'm looking for something here. Is that it? Turn off that light. No, that's an LED. That sure looks like it's in the right location. There it is. Right here. Mem OK. Mem OK switch. Installing DIMMs that are not compatible with the motherboard may cause system boot failure. The switch is enabled by default, allowing memory retraining when the motherboard is unresponsive due to memory problems. The MEMOC 2 LED will light up while retraining and turn off when retraining is complete. Onboard switches allow you to fine-tune performance when working on a bare or open case system. This is ideal for overclockers and gamers who continually change settings to enhance system performance. Here we go down here. This line says the MEMOK2 switch does not function under Windows operating system environment. So, not worried about that one. I think, oh, let's see, what about these over here? What goes on those? Oh, those are fans. And there's a power connection. So we're not ready for those yet. All right, how about power supply next? Now this right here is removable. How much do I want to show of that? Here you can see well, this piece right here allows the installation of two 2.5-inch hard drives or SSD drives. I'm not going to be using those. I'm going to try focusing here. That still looks pretty blurry to me. Well, that pattern on my Lazy Susan looks okay. Where am I seeing blurriness? Over here? All right, well, I think I'm just going to live with that. So for the power supply, I've got to take off this cage right here. And that is with a screw here. And then there's a couple of notches. And that guy will slide out. Like so. And get a power supply. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. There it is. Some cables. More cables. cable and a frame of its own. How does that compare? Yeah, that's much too large, so that's not going to be needed in this case. And then here's a power connector. Here's a manual. And here's the power supply of 550. $550-watt gold SFX power supply from EVGA Supernova. I think Supernova must be a model name. So it's a modular power supply. We knew that when we saw those cables. Got a sticker over this that says Eco Mode for economy mode. And keep getting these buttons wrong. Eco Mode. Can't read that over the camera. The Auto ECO system provides zero noise at low to moderate loads. The fan will not rotate in this mode. Oh, the fan will not rotate in Eco mode. That's interesting. So is there a way to activate Eco mode? There is a fan. Right there, you can see the fan. You can see the fan grill. There you can see the fan. Okay, I'm going to look at that sticker again. Eco mode, the Auto ECO system. So it's an automatic Eco mode. Should imply when it doesn't need cooling that the fan does not turn. Okay. So this cage let's go here. Let's see, this goes on that way. So this power supply is going to have the power connector back here. Based upon the way that cable is shaped, that would say it would go this way. So this screws on here. No, I don't think that's going to fit on there. Oh, I got that backwards. It goes this way. Yeah, okay. So this screws on this way, like that. And that's going to be 4 screws that would come from the case. Would it come from the case, or would it come from the power supply? Power supply box has plenty of screws. So there's that power connector. Okay. And screws. These screws are probably all going to be the same. That focus just really bugs me. I don't like to leave it on autofocus because it'll keep buzzing in and out. Well, looks like that's all I'm going to get. How's this angle look? That's all right. All right, so there's a power rocker switch. There's where the power connects from outside the case. And let's see, I can even show you these slots right here. That slot and that slot. They go under those 2 tabs right there. And then a single screw back here. That was this one. All right. Now the connections for this power supply are all back here. And I need to figure out which of these cables to use. So obviously this one, I got a better camera for that. Where this one has the big connector. There's two big connectors on this one, that one and that one. And then these packets just have the small connectors. That would be used for different systems, and I don't know how much of this I'm going to use on this one. So open this up and it splits into two cables. This one I obviously need. It's got one connector on this end, which would go to the power supply, and it's got two connectors on this end, which I'm sure is going to go to the motherboard. And it's labeled PSU, PSU. Let's see, did I get that right? Yeah, PSU on each of those. And this one is MB for motherboard. So I said that incorrectly, didn't I? I think. So here's the motherboard connector. Where's my best camera angle for that? It's probably this angle, and switch to this camera here. It's right there. There you can see it. And it's got a notch on the outside that this clip will go over. That clip right there. So just push it down there. And I kind of feel it and hurt it snap in place. And run this right through this opening right here. Yeah, this opening right here. There. Whoops, wait a minute. What am I thinking? It doesn't go through that opening. Here's the power supply. Yeah, I'm trying to fix the camera angles, paying so much attention to that. I totally going the wrong direction. So there's a label there for MB for motherboard. So that would be this one. This one's labeled PSU, power supply unit. And just judging by the number of connectors on it, it looks like it goes right here. Right, that fits in there nice and snug. I wonder what happens if I manually increase the exposure for this camera. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Okay, so I'm not going to have any SATA drives. I am going to have a video card, so I'll be needing a power connector for that. This connector doesn't look like I'll be needing that anywhere. I don't know what it's for. It looks like it just joins 2 pins. And it has these clips on the end, which I've seen on other motherboards, so I don't think that's going to be used. All right, so that's power supply, power to the motherboard. How about we fix these cables up a little bit? I'm just going to pull them through that opening for now and see if I can reconnect them in a way that they lay flatter. So this, I think I want it to loop back over the other side. And I accidentally disconnected this audio connector. Plug it back on. That snap you heard was the Lazy Susan. It was not the connector. I'm checking the twists in the cables. So I'm going to see if I can straighten out this cable better. That one have a clip? No, I think it just pulls straight up. Does it? Yeah, it pulls straight up. Just kind of stubborn. So this looks like it needs There, that gives me a nice flat cable. And I think this can probably do a loop like this, or run around the periphery of the cabinet. There's going to be a fan here, and the video card's going to be in here. How about we do this? I'm going to take this hard drive cage off, because there's all this space in here that's available. So that comes off with one screw, and then it slides and comes out. So I'm going to pass this through here. All right, and then, so I think I'm not going to loop it around this way, but rather do an S style, because if I loop it around, then one end of the cable will be longer than the other. And I'm going to stick it underneath these wires. And then that can plug in right here. And I think I'll not press it all the way down at this time, because I think I might be unplugging that again to do another rearrangement. Now this wire here, I'd like to also take it through this hole in the back. Need to pay attention to how it connects on those pins. So that was positive, negative, and the switch across those two. Yes. So we'll go through here. And let's route that underneath these heavy, stiff cables. Okay, the switch goes across those two, and the power LED, the positive goes towards the end, then the negative is between the end pin and that switch connector. Bingo. Boy, you got a pretty good view of that now, don't you? Yeah. Okay, so memory's going to go in there. There's no hurry on that. This power line's not going to survive very well there. I want it to go behind this cable. And it goes under this notch and plugs in right there. Now that power switch down there is not going to be accessible after the case is on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that to the on position. All right, so I still got plenty of room for working with that CPU. The video card extender is going to go into here. The NVMe M.2 drive is going to go in here. I think that needs to go now. All right. So this cover comes off with 2 screws. So this is a heat sink for the NVMe M.2 drive. This cover here over the adhesive, I'll pull that off and put that on top of the NVMe drive. It goes into this slot right here. Let's see how good of a view I can give you of that. There are 2 standoffs here, threaded standoffs, and I'll be screwing into one of those, and the NVMe drive connects into that edge connector. All right, so let's go find that drive. Here it is. VNAND SSD 970 EVO Plus NVMe M.2. You can see the edge connector on the right end of that photo of the board. And it's got a piece of tape sealing it. There's the drive. There's a thumb notch right there. Pull that out. There's the opening where it was. On the right edge, you can see that half circle. Now let me turn it so the writing's right side up. So now on the left side, you can see that semicircle notch. On the right side, you see the edge connector. And what more can I show you on that? Let's see how it looks on this camera. $970 Evo Plus, you can see VNAND SSD. And a bunch of tiny writing that you're not going to be able to see. It has a model number, a part number, a PSID, a serial number, and it says 500 gigabytes. All right, so turn the edge connector this way. Oh, and the notch. You can see the notch on the left side of that. Oh no, the right side of that. Just match it up to the socket. Push it in until you no longer see the gold edge connectors. And pull that back out. You can see the gold edge connectors. Push it in. And it kind of snaps into place. And then it has this springiness to it until we screw it down. Now some motherboards have a standoff that you have to put into that nut, into that standoff. This one does not. And let's see where we've got a screw for that. So that screw is going to probably be it's not in the drive box, so it's going to be on the motherboard screws, which makes sense. And that ought to be in its own bag. So it's an extra tiny little screw. I don't see a oh, here it is. Here it is. Yep, it's its own bag. Let's turn that light off, see if you can see it better. It's got a standoff and a screw in there. I'm going to try to show those better. On the left, you see the little screw. On the right, you see the standoff. I don't think we're going to be using the standoff. Well, yes, we are. Yes, we are. I remember this now. Yeah, we are going to use that standoff. I'm going to try to arrange this better. Okay, so there I think you can see the little screw here. It's got a Phillips head and a combination Phillips head slot head. And then this standoff looks like a nut with a threaded shaft running through it. And on the top side, which is that short side, it has a threaded hole, which this screw will screw into. So I'm going to take the M.2 drive out. and then take this standoff. I'm going to see if my nut driver over here will work for that. Yes, it is the right size. Now this is not magnetic, so it's probably going to be a little tricky. So my driver, when it goes down over that socket, it is the same size. So I have to keep my driver up high enough that it doesn't turn the nut on the motherboard. I'm going to try to show what goes on here. This standoff, that I'm calling it, has a little ridge on the top of it that should fit right into that semicircle. That helps hold this in place. Because if you just put the screw on top of this M.2 drive without that standoff, it just doesn't sit very well. Let's see if I can start it with my fingers. Yes, I did get it started. I'll tighten that. Okay, it's going to be very delicate to figure out when you've got just that top standoff snug into the nut. Okay, now insert the NVMe M.2 drive in there. Push it in so that the gold edge connectors disappear. And push this end down so it fits right onto the ledge of that standoff. You can see the way my hands are in there, this would be a whole lot more difficult to do if the CPU and its cooler were already installed. Yeah, okay, by trying to wiggle it back and forth, I can feel that it is actually snug in there. Then I'm going to take my magnetic screwdriver. I hold it this way when I'm trying to pick up a magnetic screw or a screw one-handed, because then I can slide my fingers up and seat it on the screwdriver. There. That way I can turn the screwdriver over, bring the screw down into place, and screw it in one-handed. Snug as a bug in a rug. Now, this guy needs to go back on. Got to peel off this protected cover over the adhesive, and this adhesive is used to as like a thermal paste to cool the drive. There are no notches to line that up properly over the hole, over the screw holes. So I'm just laying that on top of there very softly. And then the screws for that, I probably should have been more careful about how I laid them down here. Comparing those screws to make sure they're identical. Okay, by lifting that up a little bit, I was able to use the screw to find the hole. There it is. That screw is snug. And that screw is snug. So that's installation of the drive. I'm still liking to not have the CPU when I install the video adapter. And the video adapter is going to come over here on top of the fans. So I think the next thing I want to install is the fans. The parts for this computer were specified by somebody else who has previously built a few of these. And it turns out the fan that they specified was not correct. So I had to reorder the fan. I think I want to run this wire through here too. So that's from over here. The fans that were specified were 80 millimeter, but this is too small. The correct size fan is this one. It's actually in a smaller box. This smaller box is a 120. Yeah, it's up here on the, let's rename that a little bit. Up here on the top, 120 millimeter. And this one is an 80 millimeter. So when you open the 80 millimeter box, it's just this little fan. And that's not right for this case. And the specification said I needed 3 of those. Now, I can't figure out any way to put 3 80 millimeter fans in this case. So here's the 120 millimeter fan. Got fractal design. These are silent running fans. And they match up to those screw holes that are on the case. Now I can see that this power plug right here is going to be difficult. How do I show you that power plug? Right here. How do I get this fan in there? Oh, it's going to have to, that power plug's going to have to run through here. All right. Here's the screws for this fan. Now, as I was looking for this fan and I looked at the comments, people were complaining about how easy it is to strip the screws. Well, pretty commonly on these fans, these holes they're not threaded, they're just plastic. And these screws are a self-threading type of screw. So you have to screw them in kind of carefully because you're actually cutting the threads in the plastic as you put them in. So I need to figure out which side I want up and which side I want down, and that's going to be determined by whether I want air to flow in from the bottom of the computer and then through the graphics card, or do we flow from the graphics card down and out of the case? So the answer to that is going to be determined by the video card. And I'm not sure if that ever, well, I think that does vary. That's the power supply box. Here's the video card. So let's have a look at the video card. GTX 1660 Ti from EVGA. I think I have had the card out of the box. Still wrapped in the bubble wrap. And I'm going to check the box carefully to see if there's anything else. It kind of looks like a false bottom. It is. And I'm able to pull up that false bottom and feel that there's nothing else in there. Here's the edge of the card. There's a display port and an HDMI port and a DVI oh, what do you call that? That DVI port when it's got that slotted end, but it doesn't have the 4 pins around that slot. That's when that port can drive 2 monitors. The edge connector has a cover on it, so I'm going to leave that on for now. And there's a fan. And which way does this fan blow air? So if you turn the fan and imagine which way the air would blow. Turning the fan this way, the air would blow into the card. If the fan were to turn the other way, which is not what it does, it would suck air up through the card. Now, the way I know that that's not the way this works is by the shape of the blades. The shape of the blades are bent towards the air that they're trying to bring in to the fan. So the air goes through that way. Now, I've heard it described that you can tell by the center, whether the center turns with the blades or whether the center is static and the blades rotate around it. So on the other side of the fan, the center would be static and the blades would rotate around it. And that just doesn't appeal to my brain very well. I find that looking at the shape of the blades, it's easier to tell which way the fan turns. So this is going to be sucking air from here through the card that way. And this will be mounted this way. We can tell because of this bracket where it screws in here. So that means it's going to be sucking air up through the card. So we want these fans to bring air up from the bottom of the case. So that means the rotating side would be on the bottom so that we're sucking air up. And again, by looking at the shape of the blades, I can tell this fan is designed to run this way. If it were to run this way, it's just the leading edge of the blade is in the back. That just doesn't make sense. Actually, I guess if I say it was turning this way, on the top side, the leading edge would be on the top. But the shape of the blades, that's not a good shape for drawing air in through that direction. So these I'm going to want the fans so that the static side is on the top. The turning side is on the bottom. That's going to bring air in from the bottom. Then I want to rotate this fan so that the wires have convenient access to the motherboard. So that means I'll have this one turned this direction. And now I can kind of sandwich it right over that power cable. And I need to get it to where the screw holes are. Oh, and I see, it looks like this piece has to come out. Let's get another fan over here. There's another packet of screws, of course. So this one with the static side up and the wires convenient to the motherboard. So this one's going to be turned this way. This one's going to be turned this way. Notice it says fractal this way and it says fractal this way. Okay. So I'm going to take the screen off. It's just magnetic, just pulls off. And then there's a couple of screws here. A couple of screws right here for this, whatever we're going to call it. Now I think that's a place for the edge of the video card to rest against. And you see that slot where it can slide one way or the other to become a support. Now this screw is just like the screws for the fan. It's one of those self-threading screws. And it even feels as stiff as a screw going into a fan. So those screw holes were created, the threads in them were created by those screws. I'm not quite understanding how that brace is going to go back in when these fans are in place. All right, so I want to point out that this cable right here has a cable tie already fastening it to the frame. And I'm able to just slip that fan into position. And this hole for that fan is going in where this slot is. So that means I'm not going to be able to use this brace. I'm guessing I'm probably not going to need it. Just double checking myself about the position of that fan. It looks fine. So now I'm going to open up one of these screw packets. I'll point out to open these little bags, instead of trying to work at that seal, the Ziploc thing with two hands, just put it between your fingers and rub it like that. Quick, easy way to open these bags. So let's see, my magnetic screwdriver is working for these screws. I have a Phillips screwdriver with a bigger handle. I think I'm going to wind up getting that, but I'll go ahead and start each of these screws. Now I'm not going to start a screw in this slot until I get a screw started in each of these round holes first. Let's reposition that camera, huh? Yeah. And I've got a hole aligned right there. That started. Pick up the next screw. Using a in and out, or right and left helps to get those threads started. And then this one will go in that slot. All right, so there's all 4 screws started. I'm going to pause the video and go grab that other screwdriver. Find the pause button, 3, 2, 1, and all right, that took longer than I expected. I recently did a repair to my balcony, so my garage is kind of a mess. I haven't put it back together properly. First screwdriver I found was this one, and I tried it on one of these screws. It'll turn the screw, but it doesn't fit right. And when you're trying to create threads into anything, you want a screwdriver that fits well. That's pretty good. And this has good leverage. This is the screwdriver I actually had in mind. That fits okay, but the handle isn't as big, so it doesn't give me as much leverage. And it actually fits a little bit better. I also brought this box of bits to use in this one if I decided to. It's got a nice rubber handle. But I think I'm going to try this one. Oh yeah, that's just easy. You want to use the right screwdriver when you're creating threads. Otherwise you could strip the screw, you can strip the threads, and you can injure yourself when you're putting so much pressure on it that you slip. Don't want to bother with that. Probably doesn't. Not that important for you to see that screw go in. Now I noticed while the camera was off that this screen down here shifted out of place. It belongs down here, and here's some wires that are actually coming through from that little bit of cable management I did. I'll put that back where it belongs. Now let's take the next fan. Let's try this. Nope, that won't. Well, okay, it sits there a little bit. So this fan is going to go with the logo emblem up and the cable pointed down and over to this side so it can go through to the motherboard. I think I'm going to show this a little bit down this way because I see another issue. So let's take this camera. So here's this power cord running through. Somehow I need to set that fan down there and get that power cord around it. So it could run the power cord above, or maybe it can go between the two fans. But at any rate, I think I want to cut off this zip tie. What do I have around here for cutting a zip tie? Not the most appropriate tool, but I think good strong scissors will work just fine. There it is. Just get the right angle and it cuts very easily. So there's a bit of a gap on this fan, and so that cable can run right through there. Now let's see if I can put the other fan. No, that's not going to work. Those two fans need to be too close together for that to work. So how about if this cable runs over the fan? I think I can live with that. Now the graphics card might have something to say about that, because the graphics card is going to fit into this slot, and there is not much space for that power cable to run through there. How about this? What if, can I run this power cable around this way? That's a really sharp angle to ask that power cable to make. I've got some slack here. You know what? I bet this is enough space for that display card. Let's go dry fit display card. Oh yeah, here the power cable's got plenty of room. Boy, but that display card's not going to fit down low enough. Those fans have it sitting up too high. Wow. Maybe that's why This was specified for 80mm fans. That's not going to work. There's no way that card's going to fit in there. Let me lean this up so that you can see how far off that is. There's no way. Oops. All right, take this fan out. And unscrew this fan. Oh, those screws are too tight to use my little screwdriver. Back it out just a bit. Then I'll use my magnetic screwdriver to take them out. Wow, so much for those fans. Let's do a little test fitting with the display adapter. Take out these covers. Can't quite remember the name of those. Not edge connector covers, they're not edge connectors. Expansion slot covers. I think that's an appropriate name, even if I did just make it up. All right, so this guy has plastic on it, and in red it says there, remove protective film before use. I'm not going to remove that just yet. Right now I'm just dry fitting. Wow, that doesn't want to go in there at all. Or does it? How about if I lean it? Wow, that sure doesn't seem like a fit. Does something come apart? Yeah, it looks like this cage might come out. Let's try that. I'm kind of careful with that because it felt like I was stripping the head of the screw, but it is turning. So that screw is different than the previous two. Well, that's weird. One of those looks like a rivet. Yeah, that's a rivet. That's a screw. There's another screw. So those last three screws were all the same kind of screws. That don't look right. That doesn't fit on there in any way, shape, or form. What if I take this plate off? Well, that seems pretty aggressive. Does the motherboard manual say anything about this? Got to fix that brightness adjustment. There. So this first section, there's 3 gray tabs of sections. Actually more than that, but this section of gray tabs is called Builder's Guide. Well, that looks like a smaller fan. So here they've got a graphics card with its expansion slot screw holes. Here they show taking this piece out. That was taking off the hard drive bay. Looking to see what else they show for fans. Oh, here they're looking at the bottom of the case. That fan is the display cards fan, because they've actually got the display card installed. I'm wondering if we don't need to put fans in those other two slots, because it's got a fan built into the graphics card, it's got a fan built into the power supply, and it's going to have a fan built onto or mounted on top of the CPU. All right. I don't like taking this panel off because it's designed to screw through these holes into these threaded holes. There's just no place for that to fit. Even if I take this panel off because of this lip here, it still won't fit. So this panel comes off with that screw, that screw, that screw, and these two nuts. There's no substitute. Checking the display card box to see if there's any alternate mounting hardware. Let's open this box from the other side. Nothing there. But I did find this. All right, so this is designed to connect. This edge connector comes through that slot, and then a riser comes up from the motherboard that connects to the edge connector. These two slots right here are designed for the fingers of this slot bracket should slide right through there, the way my fingernail is. So there's only 2 of those, and this has 3. There's just no way that's gonna fit. I'm gonna have to question the person who spec'd this out. My understanding was they were giving me the same part specifications that they've used before. That just doesn't seem right. All right, so I'm going to end this video here and send an email to the person who provided the specs and ask them, hey, did you actually build a computer with these specs? These parts don't seem to fit. All right, so that's all for this video. Catch you later. Goodbye.